Good day, welcome to another biology class. Today we shall be discussing about the nutrient cycle. So nutrient cycle, once we talk about the cycle, that means that the continual process within an environment. So but we say here is nutrient cycle. That means that the circulation of nutrients, such as nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, and the likes into the plants or into the soil. But today we are not going to talk about only the nutrient cycle. We are going to talk about the as a subtopic, nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle. Because nitrogen cycle is under nutrient cycle. Nitrogen is one of the cycles that occurs under the nutrient, because nitrogen is one of the elements that is being added to the soil or being removed from the soil. They are both being added and removed from the soil. So what is non-nitrogen cycle? Nitrogen cycle can be defined as a complex process. A complex process that involve the addition and removal of nitrogen into the soil. Yes, it is a complex process, and even it is sequence. Not ordinary complex, but also a sequence. It has to follow a particular sequence. So it's a complex process that involves the addition and the removal of nitrogen into the soil. Why? Because for nitrogen to be added into the soil and to be removed, then there is a reaction between the soil and the atmosphere. Yes, there is a reaction between because we said the addition, that means that the nitrogen is being added to the soil from the atmosphere, and the removal, then we are saying that we are removing the nitrogen from the soil back to the atmosphere. That's the reason why we said there is a reaction between the atmosphere and the soil. So it's a complex process that involves the addition and removal of nitrogen into the soil and the atmosphere as well. Okay, let us give us a diagram of nitrogen cycle, so you can explain from the diagram. So let us now discuss about the nitrogen cycle. Okay. We all know that we have talked about that for every reaction that occurs, it starts from the plants, because plants are the basic animal. Yes. Now let's start. This is plant and this is animal, right? Okay. In plants, we say the plants are the one that to absorb the nitrogen. Let's say this is nitrogen in the air. Nitrogen in air, right? Okay. This is nitrogen in here, right? Nitrogen in here are being absorbed by plants through through nitrogen fixing bacteria. Which kind of bacteria? You can use azobacter, or at times we are using clostridium. Yes, these are the two bacteria that usually convert the nitrogen here. They fixed it into the plants. either what? Azobacter or Clostridium. Okay. So that means that what? After the what? After the nitrogen in the atmosphere has been fixed into the plant, then animals come to play. Animals now feed. They feed. They will feed on plants, right? After the animal feed on plants, what happen? The animal have to give us what? Excretion of feces. Excretion of feces. Feces, yes. What do you mean by this feces? The waste products, right? All animal give what? Excretion of feces. This excretion of feces, now, from here, animal now give what? You know this excretion of feces. This excretion of feces now has what? Now has something of ammonium compound. Ammonium compound. What do you mean by ammonium compound? Something that contains an ammonium. And what's ammonium? NH3, right? Yes. So that is that what the feces that what the animal excrete will contain ammonium, even though it is not only ammonium. That is why we call it ammonium compound. Something else is what is joined with this ammonium. Okay, this ammonium that is what? That is now what? Now excreted into the floor, into the what? Into the ground. Now being converted by what? By another bacteria called nitrifying bacteria. Nitrifying bacteria. And these nitrifying bacteria are what? Are what? Nitrosomonas. Somonas. Yes. These nitrosomonas, they are the ones that will convert this what? Ammonia into what? Into what is called the nitrite. Nitrite. Yes. The nitrite. Are we getting it? Ammonium through nitrifying bacteria will convert what? The ammonium into what? Into the nitrite. Nitrite. Yes. This nitrite now oxidize. Immediately it's being converted. Now oxidize. And don't forget that we have talked about at least a little bit of explanation. This is not a chemistry class, but at least we have to understand what is meant by the oxidize and what reducing. So in one of our previous video, we have talked about the oxidation and reduction. So what do we call the oxidation? We say oxidation is the what? Addition of oxygen and removal of what? The reduction of what? Reduction is what? Oxidation is the what? Addition of oxygen, while reduction is what? Removal of oxygen. In oxidation, we will talk that the what is addition of oxygen and reduction is what? Removal of oxygen. That means that we are now adding what? We are now adding this nitrate. There is then oxidized. That means that what? The oxygen is now being added to it, and it gives us what? Nitrate. This nitrate is different from nitrite. Nitrate is different from nitrite. Don't get it wrong. This is conversion. Nitrifying bacteria convert the ammonia to nitrite, not nitrate. Nitrite, nitrite. But this one is nitrate because there is an addition of oxygen. So this nitrite further oxidized because of the what? Electrical discharge. Discharge in what? In atmosphere. In atmosphere. Right? Now come back to what? To nitrogen. Through denitrification. Yes, denitrification. So that is the simple process. of what? Of a nitrogen cycle. Let me recap what I've already explained. Naturally, there is nitrogen in the air. Naturally, because I could remember I've also talked about what the elements in the atmosphere. I could remember I talked about the nitrogen in that particular video, oxygen in that particular video, water vapor in that particular video, so and the rest. So that means that in our atmosphere, naturally, we have what? We have nitrogen. And this nitrogen will be what? Fixed into the plant. Through what? Through nitrogen fixing bacteria. Is a bacteria, and that kind of bacteria is either Azobacter or Clostridium. Once an Azobacter is in a plant, then there won't be Clostridium. So this Azobacter or Clostridium will be the one to fix the nitrogen in the what? In the atmosphere to the plant. Then naturally, it is normal for an animal to feed on this what? On this plant. Right? Once an animal feeds on the plant, then this nitrogen in the plant has been absorbed by the animal. And don't forget that what? Even if it is what? If it is protein that is being absorbed, or carbohydrate, or any form of food, once the animal is what? Feed on this particular plant, the animal feed and give us the excretion of physics. Once a human being or even an animal eats, it is what? It is due process for us what? To have what? Physics. And this physics is what? Is the waste product. But don't forget that in every physics, there is what? Ammonia compound that has to be excreted. Once we excrete this ammonia compound, in this ammonia compound, then another bacteria now acts on this water ammonia compound by converting the ammonia in that compound to what? To nitrite. These kind of bacteria are called nitrosomonas. Then nitrosomonas now convert the ammonia compound to the nitrite. Immediately it has been converted to the nitrite. Oxygen, which is what? Present in the atmosphere, now reacts with the nitrite to oxidize the nitrite to nitrate. It oxidizes the nitrite to nitrate. And naturally again, the electric discharge, either through what? Lightning, or through thunderstorm. Yes, thunderstorm. The thunderstorm that usually occur probably after the rainfall, or lightning that strike, we convert the what? Nitrite back to the what? Back to the nitrogen through denitrification. And this is how the what? How the process goes on and on within the what? Within the soil and the atmosphere. Don't forget, note that only denitrification is the removal of what? Removal of nitrogen from the soil back to its atmosphere. But all other process, nitrogen fixation, ammonia, nitrosomonas, nitrite, and nitrate, they are all giving what? Nitrogen to the what? To the soil. But only denitrification process, which is what? From reaction of what? Nitrate back to nitrogen, is the only one that gives what? The nitrogen back to the atmosphere. But others are adding what? Are adding nitrogen to the what? To the soil. That's one of the examples that most students usually failed in the exam. They don't take notice that what? It is only denitrification, which is the reaction between what? Nitrate to the nitrogen, that gives what? Remove nitrogen from the soil. But all other process, nitrogen fixation, nitrifying bacteria, excretion, they are giving what? They are giving nitrogen to the what? To the soil. That is what? That is the nitrogen cycle. Now let us now discuss the stages. Okay. So let us now discuss the what? Nitrogen fixation process. How nitrogen is being what? You know, that's we have already talk about the diagram of what nitrogen cycle, right? Let us now discuss the what nitrogen fixation. You could remember I said it is a process, it is a sequence. So number one, symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Yes, symbiotic nitrogen fixation. What happens in this symbiotic nitrogen fixation is that what? Okay, let me just list them. Two. Electrical discharge. 3. Non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation. 4. Ammonification and nitrification. And the last one is dentification. So let me now explain. These are the 5 sequence in which the nitrogen are being fixed into the soil, or are being removed from the soil. Now symbiotic nitrogen fixation. That's number 1 process. What occurs here is what? Bacteria. Note that when I discuss about the nitrogen cycle, then in the diagram I showed earlier, I talked about there's difference between symbiotic nitrogen fixation and non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation, and there is different bacteria that are involved. So bacteria that are involved in this symbiotic nitrogen fixation is called Rhizobium leguminosarium. This is the bacteria that involved in symbiotics. There is another thing that we have to take care of. We have to take note of it. Rhizobium leguminosarium is a symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Why Azobacter, I remember Azobacter and Clostridium are non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation bacteria. They are both that bacteria, but this one is what? Symbiotic, and this one is what? Non-symbiotic. Okay, so bacteria such as what? Rhizobium leguminosarium. This Rhizobium leguminosarium always live in nodes of legumes. You know, you call it leguminosarium. That means that it is from legumes, node of legumes. What do? They fixed by fixing the nitrogen in atmosphere into the soil. You see, they fixed the nitrogen in the atmosphere into the soil. That is what symbiotic nitrogen fixation. But don't forget, I said symbiotic. Why did I call it symbiotics? Because these plants and bacteria are doing good to each other. How? The plants will give carbohydrates as a food to the bacteria to feed on. Right? While the bacteria now help what? Help the what? The nitrogen, help the plant to break down the nitrogen in the what? In the atmosphere to for plant to absorb. Do you get it? Plants give what? Bacteria to the what? Give carbohydrate to the bacteria to feed, while bacteria helps the plant to break down the what? The nitrogen in the atmosphere for them to what? To be fixed in the plant. So that's the reason why they are symbiotic. They are helping each other. That's number one. That means that the nitrogen are being fixed by bacteria such as Rhizobium leguminosum in the nose of the legumes, by fixing the nitrogen in the atmosphere into the cell. That is called symbiotic nitrogen fixation. That's number one. That's the first process. The second process was electrical discharge. What happens in this electrical discharge? The process in this electrical discharge is that naturally there is nitrogen in the atmosphere. This nitrogen now reacts. Nitrogen reacts with what? With oxygen in the air. Oxygen in the air to give us what? Nitrogen 2 oxide. Right? Okay. The nitrogen in the air reacts with oxygen in the air to give us nitrogen 2 oxide. This nitrogen 2 oxide further reacts. Nitrogen 2 oxide then oxidize again plus oxygen, right, to give us what? Nitrogen 4 oxide, right? Nitrogen 4 oxide. Firstly, the nitrogen in the air reacts with oxygen to give us nitrogen 2 oxide. That's the first thing. Then this nitrogen 2 oxide further oxidize. And I've already told that oxidation is what? Addition of oxygen. That oxidize to give us what? Nitrogen 4 oxide. And nitrogen 4 oxide now further reacts with water. We have already known that there are some conditions that is necessary for a plant to germinate. One of the conditions is that there was presence of water. That means that for any plant to be developed or has a growth, there is water in the root, and that is where at the point where the nitrogen 4 oxide reacts with water to give us two things, either nitrous HNO2 or nitric acid. It's either they give us this nitrous or nitric acid. This nitrous or nitric acid now be the one to dissolve to give us okay, sorry please. So this HNO2 or HNO3 now dissolve to give us what? The nitrite, NiTrite, the nitrite, right? Then after we have given us the nitrite, it now come to what? If you remember that this diagram we show in the nitrogen cycle, this is exactly how the sequence was. So then it now comes to what? Nitrogen fixation. The non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation, which are what? The Azobacter or Clostridium. The Azobacter or Clostridium now the one that they fixed nitrogen in air to what? To the soil. To the soil. Through what? Through what? Through nitrogen fixing bacteria, right? And these nitrogen fixing bacteria are what? Are Azobacter or Clostridium. That's no symbiotic what? Fixation. Now the next one is what? So what we have now next is what? Ammonification. ammonification and nitrification. Right? Ammonification. What is now ammonification? Ammonification is what? The process of adding ammonium through dead or decay plants or animal or their waste products, such as what? Such as feces or urine. Right? That is what ammonification is, that we get what? We get ammonia through either the dead or decay plants or an animal. You know, once an animal dead or a plant dead, then we have ammonium, right? Or at times, even if there's no anyone that died, either plant or animal, but their waste products, such as feces or urine of an animal, there is what? There is what's it called? There is ammonium compound in it. Then immediately this ammonium has been formed, then nitrification now comes. What is nitrification? They convert. Conversion. This is what? This is ammonification. Right? We are getting what? We are getting the ammonia. But the conversion of ammonia, conversion of ammonia NH3, ammonium compound, into nitrite is called ammonification. It's called nitrification. Through nitrifying bacteria. Which bacteria? Nitrosomonas. Yes. Two nitrosomonas. The first is that ammonification. We have what? The adding of ammonia, or the process of getting ammonia through either with dead body or decay, plant or animal. Or even if it is no decay or plant of an animal, their physics, their excretion, which is either feces or urine, we get ammonia from there. But this ammonia is not useful for us. But why? Because this compound cannot be broken except there is nitrification. And what's nitrification? The conversion of ammonia into nitrate is called nitrification. By nitrifying bacteria, which nitrifying bacteria are we talking about? The nitrosomonas. So that's the basic function of the word nitrification, converting the ammonia compound into nitrate through the nitrosomonas. And the last one we have in here is denitrification. What is denitrification? Don't forget that you have talked about that denitrification is the only process by which the nitrogen is being removed from the soil through the water back to the atmosphere. And this is what? Conversion. Okay, let me shift a little bit. Denitrification. This is what? Conversion of ammonia, conversion of what? Nitrate to nitrogen. We convert the nitrogen, though it is true we can use electrical discharge here as well, because the conversion will take place once we have the electrical discharge, such as lightning or explosive. Then this conversion of nitrate that is being formed from to nitrogen. So on this note, we have end our class for today. And don't forget to subscribe and like this particular channel. Thank you very much. Thank you once again.